Hello, my Richies, and welcome back to another episode of the Make Life Rich Movement podcast. My name is Sarah. I'm your host. And in today's episode, we are talking about making new friends after tremendous change in your life and tremendous growth, right? Because we would hope that if you're going through tremendous change, you are also going through some tremendous growth at the same time. This is a really beautiful but challenging reality that all of us will come into time and time again throughout the journey of our life, God willing, right? Every day we're here as a blessing, and we really do want to try our best to be growing and evolving every day. And I myself am just trying to become a little bit more aligned with, every action that I do and kind of connecting it to God and making sure that I am just, in essence, and overall leaving the planet a better place than I found it. And friendships, if you find yourself growing and evolving and old relationships kind of falling to the wayside because you don't really have too much more in common, or maybe that phase was a while ago for you and you find yourself in a place now where you still don't feel like you have many deep friend connections and you'd like to. This episode comes from my personal experience of the last 4 years after having moved home to my hometown, my childhood hometown, Cape May, New Jersey, and all of the evolution that's come since then in that regard of just making new friends. And it was a journey, and there was a lot of loneliness from the perspective of just looking for people to connect with that were into things that I was into. And hopefully you find yourself blessed to have a partner and someone that you confide in and love and enjoy and have a life with. But there's nothing like friendships, and you can't live your entire life through your partner. And it was really important for me during the time of moving back home to make lifelong friendships. And I knew that that would take time. So this episode is basically how I went about making some real friendships for myself over the last 4 years. Now, the first thing that I had to do was just honor the sacred loneliness of what this transformation period was. It was absolutely the space between the old friendships and recognizing that I was in the market for new ones, and not only in for new ones, but I wanted there to be a kindred spirit there. I wanted it to be a person that's also growing. I wanted them to recognize in me what I recognize in them. It's like, cool, we have something to talk about. We understand each other. We speak the same language. Now, it's a really spiritually rich place to not only develop yourself, but to grow and evolve away from the current container that you find yourself in. If you especially are not liking your life lately and you know that there's a bigger change for you out there and a bigger life out there for you. But even in having embraced that this was going to be a period of really rich development, as I said, I had to recognize that isolation is a spiritual season and not punishment. It did kind of feel like punishment, especially because the new change of season that I was in felt like a really liberated one based in joy for myself. And I didn't really have friends to share that with. I had two core friends and they themselves were going through big changes, but I was interested in having, at the very least, good acquaintances that I shared some type of interest or skill with that I could hang out with. And in recognizing that the isolation was a spiritual season, there was definitely an overall acceptance of sometimes divine love orchestrates periods of solitude for us to kind of solidify who our new self is without any kind of outward influence or responses from those that aren't on your level of growth, that have no idea where you've come from and where you've currently landed. And it's not really fair for them to be able to affect you with their lower evolutionary, emotionally elevated state of mind. And I say that in the kindest way possible. Truly, it's not a matter of pointing fingers. It's just a matter of putting yourself first and respecting the boundaries that you have to put in place for this time in your life. It felt to me at times like I was being punished for the decision that I made, this big change in life, and that I needed to sit with it and just kind of like be by myself. But I was looking at it from a very pessimistic point of view. I could have looked at it from the place of God is giving you time right now to get to know yourself in the peace and quiet of just you and your husband, who you trust deeply and who knows you inside and out and is also on his growth journey. But at times, I really let fear and doubt take over and completely abandon the fact that, one, I have no control over anything truly happening. I can only try to align my actions as best as possible with what I think my ultimate goals and purposes are in life. And, you know, the intent that I put behind it when I'm doing these actions. But God wasn't abandoning me, and He's not abandoning you. He's creating space for you to get to know yourself more deeply before you are entering into any kind of new relational dynamics that may challenge or confront or build off of what your current belief systems are inside of yourself. It was also difficult to accept that most of the friendships that I had were not going to survive this change in my life. Most of that change started for me after my father passed away. I didn't realize I'd also too needing to be grieving friendships that were not going to make the cut. Either they were, very confused about what grief was and just didn't have the emotional bandwidth, or were very fearful of confronting their own thoughts about mortality. So they really couldn't support me in the way that I would have loved and really appreciated. And then there were others that were really angry that they were in a battle with my grief for my attention, which was like truly one of the most shocking and eye-opening things that I had to go through during the grieving process. I will never forget that, honestly. But you have to allow yourself to feel genuine sadness for these relationships ending, as I had to do. And it just wasn't about judging former friends for being less evolved and, just judging you in a way that you're like, wow, I'm doing something good for myself. You would think and assume that you would just want to either join me on this journey and get better as well, or if not, at least not wish me like unwell times. Like it's very interesting how people show themselves when you are going through big changes in your life, and you have to trust and believe who they are showing you. Do not fight it, just accept it and kind of envelop it into the already big changes that you are currently on that kind of led them to fall off in the first place. I also needed to learn to, again, surrender, Jesus, take the wheel, and trust the timing of relationships coming into my life. I was so eager to force things, and they're just, nobody was biting. And I was like, man, okay, guess I'm not meant to have friends right now. And, just as you wouldn't plant seeds in the winter, there are seasons when your relationship soil, your friendship soil needs time to marinate. It needs time to regenerate before new friendships can come in, plant that seed, take root, and flourish. And not only flourish, but be something that lives through seasons and seasons and seasons. So I had to learn to trust that timing is not only preventing me from setting any kind of connections that don't truly nourish my soul and aren't aligned in a way that I would like for them to be aligned, and hope that they would also wish for it to be aligned. And it's like forcing a boyfriend or a girlfriend because you're tired of being alone. Like, that's not a good idea. It's not going to end well. And the same can be said for friendships. There was also a moment where I had to completely take a look at the inner child healing around fears and rejections of abandonment. It was big for me, and I didn't think it would be, but it was. So, making new friends after major life changes often triggers some emotional, unhealed childhood wounds that are around acceptance, belonging, rejection, abandonment, and ultimately fear, and how fear and anxiety are kind of fueling your brain to go off in all these different directions. And it ultimately leads you to believe that you are not lovable as your authentic self. And I think there was a really big time in my life, absolutely throughout all of childhood, adolescence, and early 20s, and probably into my 30s, where I was always constantly addressing, what if they don't like the real me? That fear, that anxiety. And my inner child was absolutely in control in this scenario in my relationships with friends. And I was terrified that if people saw who I truly was, that they would become distant. And that included my spiritual beliefs, boundaries that I desperately wanted to set in place, and life choices that I knew were coming up for me that I thought they might reject me for. And healing the wound around this abandonment and rejection often is going to involve reassuring your inner child that rejection from people who can't love your authentic self is actually a protection mechanism that you should be very thankful for, and that relationships that require you to hide or shrink are not something that you should be throwing yourself on the train tracks over here, aka completely abandoning your nervous system, your beliefs, your boundaries, and your spiritual beliefs for people that would never do that for you, let alone for themselves. I also needed to recognize where in my habits that I was just people pleasing my face off, which was everything, everywhere, every time, at every moment. every moment. Excuse me, let me get a sip here. Shout out to Harbor Coffee. I had to become aware of when I was being triggered, and it made me feel like I needed to hide parts of myself in order to present a more palatable version of me for that person, whether it was to avoid them raging out, aka like family members. Maybe it was for gaining acceptance, trying to get into a friend group. And this pattern, which is often developed in childhood, absolutely prevents you from creating any kind of authentic connection that is going to attract relationships that are based on false pretenses rather than the genuine compatibility and mutual respect and trust of just liking one another. And the final thing that I really had to get a hold of was just building internal security, boundaries, especially, and feelings and emotions of overall comfort and safety and peace in myself that didn't depend on external validation. And this is something I literally have been like working very, very hard on for the last few years, just because of some, relations that I have that I'm now near all the time that are, very much mirroring to me a lot of work that I've left in myself to do. And I needed to, just practice speaking to my inner child in a way that's reparenting them, helping them to understand that, we have everything we need inside of ourselves. I'm so sorry that they didn't feel seen or safe by their friend group before, in order, or whoever it was that made them shrink themselves and believe that lies and masks were better and more beautiful and more worthy of love than who you really are. We have to really work on unconditional love and acceptance of ourselves first and foremost, because I would say to myself, you are worthy of friends who celebrate your growth. Your authentic self is a gift to people alone. Your presence is all you need. You don't need to earn love by being less of who you are or doing more for someone to make them like you. The third big thing for me was recognizing my new relational values and non-negotiable boundaries and actions. Growth, big changes, etc. They're not just about who you are, but they're about what you in turn are going to relationally need reciprocated or given to you by others in relationships, in your job, in your family. And it's requiring you to become clear about what your evolved values have become and will continue to aspire to, as well as what boundaries are needed before seeking new connections that you're going to bring in to kind of test these things you've found for yourself. I had to first identify what my spiritual and emotional non negotiables were. So, what does this mean? I had to reflect on what was important to me in my friendships that I wasn't getting before. Mutual respect for spiritual journeys and grief, emotional safety to feel vulnerable, support for continued growth, not needing to feel like I need to perform or provide value to them for the friendship to be needed or even happening, alignment on core values, and seeing growth in them as well, and knowing that they are safe within themselves so that we can just build along each other as a friendship and not have it be like an energy vampire situation. That was really big for me. These are not supposed to be superficial preferences. So not like, oh, I like coffee. They go to the gym. The gym is great because that shows discipline. They want to take care of themselves, etc. But like, we're talking deeper qualities, deeper values here. I then had to learn to distinguish between like chemistry and compatibility. Certainly you're going to meet girls that are like so bubbly, so fun, etc. And you're like, oh wow, your energy is great. But then you get to know them a little bit more and you just see that your core values are nowhere aligned. And it's almost something that they want to challenge you on, or you feel yourself called to not really want to be engaged in whatever it is that they're talking about. This was huge for me. And I had to learn the difference between relationships that feel exciting or familiar, because that could be based off of old patterns and habits that I'm looking to get rid of, versus those that felt genuinely nourishing, genuinely growth supporting. These people were people that I not only wanted to be friends with, I wanted to be more like them. I liked a quality about them that I found really endearing and made me want to become a better person. I want to be around people that want to make me feel like they enjoy my company as well, because I bring them the same energy. And being in a place now where that is, I'll say, the majority of friends that I've now made here, my gosh, I feel richer than you could imagine. The friendships that I've curated in the last 4 years here not only feel lifelong, but are just God given, man. And I ask God for friends about a year ago. And man, did he deliver in ways that I just could never have imagined. And I'm talking people from all backgrounds, experiences, career paths, and the way in which we're all connecting is just so special and niche and very much like, oh my gosh, you enjoy this? Me too. I've never met anyone that like that. Let's talk about that. Or you love that author? Me too. Like it's just been really nice to connect on the joys and parts of life that aren't about making money and aren't about looking good for something or someone or a post or vanity measures. It's just about feeling good. It's about experiencing this life that we are so blessed to have in front of us. Gosh, I just thank you, God, for all the friends you've delivered. And I hope if you're in a season right now where you don't have friendships that light you up, just know it's coming and ask God to bring the people in your life that are meant to be in your life in the time that they're meant to be in your life. And you will see them start to pop up slowly but surely. I also needed to allow for friendships to kind of lovingly challenge me at moments, right? Because we don't want yes men. We don't want people that are just going to be very, I'll say, surface level in engaging. Like, I have friends that take it upon themselves to remind me that I have tasks I need to do because they're important to me, but they know I'm also swamped with 1,000 other things. Shout out to Abby. I still haven't cleaned those fans, but I'm going to do it right after this episode. And then I've got, gosh, just wellness soul friends like Kate and man, like Sally, that not only fill up my cup, they fill up a cup of mine that I am constantly pouring out onto others. And I haven't really ever had anyone in my life that filled up the cup that way besides my husband. And it's so nice to have not one, but two women that do that for me now. I needed to remind myself that healthy friendships allow transformation. They include people who ask good questions, they celebrate your evolution, and they are not threatened by your continued development. Much opposite, in fact. They are encouraged, they are supported, and they in turn feel inspired to aspire to bringing more growth and change into their life. It's just a beautiful reciprocal thing when you find yourself in a healthy friendship. I then needed to kind of, the water was getting warm, right? I'm like, okay, I feel like I'm in a place where I'm ready for friendships. I had to step into vulnerability and allow authenticity to be how I moved forward in introducing myself to others. And you would think, as talkative as I am, I would be great about talking about myself to others. And I'm not. That's why I became a publicist. I talk about everybody else. It's hard to talk about myself. So that was something that I really had to get under my belt and get over very quickly. I just started by talking about the things I enjoy doing. I enjoy taking walks with my dog. I enjoy eating healthy snacks and foods. I love coffee. I love reading books about getting better. I love podcasts. If you have a favorite, share it with me. And, I also tried to lead with my values and to just show them who I authentically was without being afraid. A number of some of the best friends that I've had come into my life in the last few months are people that embraced me during the time of me coming into my faith journey and recognizing that I love God and I'm on a journey with God and Jesus. And it's like been very interesting to see how many people in my life this makes absolutely squirm and how absolute strangers are just so enthralled for this journey for me that it's something we actively talk about. And I love it so much that like it makes my face, my whole face smile. I also needed to get comfortable with sharing my story without needing others to understand me completely, which always felt like I was on the defensive for absolutely no reason. I don't need anyone to accept me or what I'm doing other than me and God, and me and God are great. So I literally now no longer feel the need to kind of impress upon anyone that I am worthy of them knowing. It's either the spark is there and it's meant to be for our souls to be friends, or it isn't. And I'm quite okay with that. And you need to be too. The sooner you are, it's going to be so much easier to make real friendships once you've recognized that. Finally, I needed to create reciprocal vulnerability and room for emotional safety with friends by practicing asking them imploring, meaningful questions. We're not talking about the weather. We're not talking about their kids unless something is going on with their kids and you want to be supportive. We're not talking about the crappy thing their husband did unless they're in that season where they need someone to speak to safely about that. We're talking about what lights them up. We're talking about, when did you find peace this week? Have you cried in the last week? Has there been any really tough moments for you that you went through alone that you'd like to share with me so that you can feel a little bit more supported and seen? Bam. That's all you got to do. Why? Because everyone you know is begging for this kind of communication and connection with a real soul. Why? Because we live our life online and we're missing out on so much of the beautiful, intimate moments that can be provided for you and another person in a healthy friendship that is based in authenticity and based from a place of growth with the expectation that there is a trajectory for both of you to continue aspiring towards alongside each other as we wish for our partners, as we wish for our children if you have them. We can only grow upward, but it's so much more supportive and beautiful and engaging to grow upward like a field of sunflowers rather than to be a standalone. Anywho, you get what I'm putting down here. Now, I want you to do a few things. I'm going to give you a little bit of homework. One, I want you to think about either putting out intention there. If you're not in a space where you speak to God, put intention out to the universe, to the creator, to bring you friendships that are worthy of you and where you're at in your life, that are going to grow alongside you. If you are one that talks to God, pray for and over future friendships. I've enjoyed doing this. It has brought me great joy. I had my dear friend Kate pray over me earlier this year, and I'll tell you what, it was one of the most intimate things I've had happen in a friendship. And it's a new friendship, and it immediately sealed the deal for me being loyal AF to Kate Ehrenberg till I pass, because that was just one of the most beautiful things anybody could have done for me. And she did it willingly. And she did it in a way that made me want to do it for myself and for other people too. So shout out to praying over and for your future friendships. It's just creating a peaceful shift of taking you from desperate seeking to faithful exploration of knowing that whatever friendships are meant for you are going to find you, and whatever friendships are not meant for you are going to pass you by. I also had to practice a friendship with myself while I was waiting for these dream friendships. And I used the season as a way to kind of develop the kind of relationship with myself that I wanted to have with others. Also, what I would like to mirror on others so that they can feel the way that I enjoyed loving myself and those close to me. And I had to enjoy my own company, celebrate my own growth, pursue activities that used to bring me joy, try and find new ones that I didn't know brought me joy. And I needed to be able to integrate all of that into the person that I was becoming so that when I am attracting friends, I know exactly what it is that I'd like to do as a friend with them and how I'd like them to treat me. And finally, I had to recognize on a soul level when a friendship was actually happening. And I did that by learning to notice when I met someone and there was a sense of, oh my gosh, finally someone who gets it. Oh my gosh, your heart is so pure. That was such a beautiful thing you just did for that woman in the coffee shop. Or, oh man, thank you so much for stopping to like cross that turtle up there. Like I saw you do that before you parked. Like that was so cool. Thanks so much. I do it too. Like, do you ever want to go on a turtle walk together and like move all of them at the morning and at the sunset times when they're most likely to get smashed to bits with zero care or recourse? And then they're like, why, yes, I would. Because I know, like you, turtle friend, how many people it takes to cross dozens and dozens of large turtles at a time. And it's more than one person. So, yeah, we can be friends because we have a love of nature and preserving an endangered species. I love that. Like that could happen if I open my little mouth and I engage and I see someone on a soul level enough to where I'm like, I recognize that part of them that I know is in me. I love that. Let's be friends. So I want to encourage you to identify one way that you can practice authentic connection this week. Whether that's joining a group that's aligned with your values, or sharing honestly in an existing relationship, or simply spending time with yourself and starting to recognize and understand what kind of relationships you would like to cultivate and pray into your year this year or next year, God willing. The right friendships are worth waiting for, and the growth that you are going through right now has prepared for your relationships to be richer and more meaningful than you can ever imagine, more than anything you've ever experienced before. So just know that this season of solitude and waiting is absolutely going to birth the most beautiful friendships that you have been asking God for. And my friend, I cannot wait to hear about it. If you do find yourself in a space of solitude this year and you just would love for someone to chum it up with, feel free to leave me a comment in the comment section if you're on Spotify or YouTube. You can also feel free to reach out to me on Instagram. There is a link in the show notes or on the show bio area, about me area, where you can click and follow me on Instagram. My Richies, as always, it has been an absolute pleasure. I really do just honor and thank you so much for the time and attention that you are providing from so many countries around the world, so many different age groups, so many listeners. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I have really high hopes and really big dreams for this show, and it would mean the world to me if you could share this with someone you think might enjoy the show or this episode. I hope you have a wonderful week ahead, and as always, make life rich.